Welcome to Sticking to the Truth with Julene Jackson and Debbie Jansen. Liar, liar, pants on fire. That's how I feel today. Some Americans may feel like we are swimming in a pool of lies. Lies float over our country like a black storm cloud. There are times I feel the uncertainty and sorrow of living with those lies. It makes you feel as though you can't trust anyone. And that leads to a loss of trust in our very foundations. So stay with us today as we sort out the lies and how they are destroying our belief in freedom. Wow. I think 2025 is Julene's breakout year. Julene, darling, you seem to be going all the time, but your family is growing in different ways and your life is being blessed and in constant change. What's going on with you today, darling?
You're just a breakout year. I mean, I want to break out of that hamster cage. I want to get off that hamster wheel I feel like I've been on. You know, Deb, it's just my season of life. You'll remember it all too well. When the kids are growing up, they're graduating from college, they're launching into careers, they're getting married, grandbabies are coming. We just had a wedding, a beautiful wedding about 2 weeks ago, and the little 7-week grandbaby was there. And while we were back west, my daughter went on some college visits. Our baby is going to be a senior next year. I think I told you, I think I already said I'm 56, but it's just that season of life where everyone's launching or have launched. And it's very exciting. But I mean, I feel like I've never worked harder in my life, you know? Jeez. It's all good though. It's a wonderful, wonderful ways to stay busy at this time in my life. Thanks for asking, Deb.
Oh, I'm so excited for you, Julene. That is great. And I remember those times, and they are busy. But thank goodness you've been blessed with a beautiful family, because many people today feel like they have nothing solid to hang on to, and they feel tossed by the wind. And that's how difficult families, and then when you add the lies that are at work in our life, especially the big ones, can knock you off your feet. And before you know it, you are so weak-minded, you don't know how to get up again. So I know your family is keeping you strong and keeping you centered, but I pray for people who don't have that in their lives. Now, while you've been traveling, our family has been hit with a lot of problems that made me feel like I was experiencing a tsunami. So I'm so glad you were off having fun. I was just struggling to keep standing, and the problems just kept coming and coming and coming, and I felt off balance, as if the wave of a tsunami has me spinning and rolling in the water without a way to catch my breath or find my footing. And I began to think, that's what lies do to you. They cause doubt and fear and confusion about your beliefs. It's a daily fight for every human to remain strong in their beliefs and to be able to know the truth, to kind of get your footing and stand strong and hold your head up and say, I can do that. Well, because as the Bible says, know the truth and the truth will set you free. That's what you need to be struggling and pushing to find. And that's good advice, whether you believe in God or not. There's a beautiful freedom about knowing the truth. In 2016, I watched all the news stories about Trump and how bad he was for the country. And for 4 years, we all heard about impeachments and lawsuits and the supposedly undisputed truth that Trump and Putin were working together to destroy this country. It was so sad to hear people talk about how worried and depressed they were, how they thought we were going to be a communist country within 2 years. And I bet you remember how AOC was telling the world that we would end and blow up by the year 2028. Well, something didn't seem right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I prayed, I studied, and I tried to get a clear picture. And it continued to be a mysterious problem for me. Then in 2020, I could not accept the election results. There was too many accounts that I just couldn't figure out. Accounts of cheating or maybe just a little bit of hanky-panky. I watched the riots that came afterward and then the clampdown on free speech and freedom loving, sane adults. And the only thing that felt right was to continue to believe that something wasn't right, but accept what I couldn't change and just hang on, find my footing and hang on. People asked me if I definitely believed that God was punishing Trump, and I said no. I believe we don't have the truth, and we better pray and hope God opens our eyes to the lies that are swirling around us. I told one pastor that I believed God wasn't punishing Trump, but he was going to train the American people. And now look at how many Democrats, independents, and moderates are now appreciative of Trump and the truth. Well, here's what we're going to talk about today. Last week, Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, declassified documents revealing overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how, after Donald Trump won in 2016, are you ready for this, Julene? President Barack Obama and his national security team laid the groundwork for the Trump-Russia collusion. I thought, what? I never dreamed ever that kind of connection would come about. And I wasn't expecting that. My brain just never went that way. Not wanting to hear another lie, my first question was, how does Tulsi know? But then I realized that our government may be lax in a lot of ways, but they do a pretty good job of recording and documenting meetings. And if certain papers had been classified, and then no one would be able to research that material. Declassifying them could open a lot of stuff that elites don't want you to know. Now, I hate conspiracy stuff because I don't always believe it. And I despise always thinking someone is out to get me or to hurt me. In fact, that's a psychological disorder, and I don't want to go there. And yet, if I've been lied to and manipulated, well, then it's time to speak up. What do you think, Julene?
I think we're on to. I think there's some hanky panky going on. Your expressions, Deb. I'm like, yeah, there's some hanky panky. I mean, really, that's very interesting that they're accusing President Obama of treason, right? They say they have Gabbard in her office, say they have irrefutable proof, and that this might be the biggest scandal in American history. Trying to remove an elected president by an existing president, or, rigging the elections and so forth. And then I was reading, in the Democrats camp and President Obama's offices, they're saying these are bizarre allegations and saying that it's just a weak attempt by the Trump administration at distraction, maybe for other issues that are at hand. And so, the word hoax, right, is a word that we're all familiar with because we heard President Trump, convince us, and proof came out. Russiagate, the Russia hoax, really of colluding Trump and Russia really amounted to nothing. But to think that there really is something more to this, they purposely spun this to take President Trump out, before he even got in 2016 and then in 2020. It is interesting, though, that President Trump himself is, and we'll talk about this in a minute, calling the Epstein a hoax, Yeah. And I'm like, well, I don't know. That doesn't feel like a hoax to me. So then, it's a little confusing, right? What is a hoax? Because there are hoaxes out there, and what is not a hoax? And
exactly.
I think that's the confusing, disheartening part of what's going on in the world today. We're just not quite sure, right?
Yeah, and that's the problem. That is, I don't want to believe this. I don't want to believe that kind of felons and terrible thing is happening to our country and the people that are running the country. I just don't want to feel that. And yet, it makes me angry and frustrated to know that the Department of Homeland Security knew, according to what they're saying, in December 8th of 2016, that the Russia collusion was a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
I read it in a declassified presidential daily brief that the CIA, DIA, FBI, all these whatever, XYZers, and national security agencies stated, we assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. Well, that's what Obama and all of them were claiming, but it's in the records that they were saying it didn't happen. And I go, really? They were lying to the American people and continued to do so until 2024, and really until this came out. People were scared, Julene. People lost fortunes, jobs, and families. Prosecutors destroyed the lives of people who believed in Trump. Protesters, right after all that, destroyed millions of dollars of property, and it was all a hoax. I'm just sick and frustrated. Julene, what's your biggest frustration?
Well, living in Washington, D.C., I'm just about 20 minutes from the White House. The Epstein thing is what everyone is talking about in Washington, D.C. right now, particularly Republicans. It's interesting that when the Democrats had these Epstein files, they didn't really seem to care about it, right? They just kind of, he died under President Biden's watch, and it was just kind of swept under the rug. But because President Trump has really prided himself on being transparent, and people that have been put in his cabinet have said they were going to expose, they weren't going to sweep it under the rug like previous administrations had. So, it hasn't really set well with a lot of people, and it hasn't set well with me how President Trump has called the Epstein case a hoax. Because, whenever children are at the heart of the issue, this disgraced sex offender that mysteriously died in jail, and his cohort, Ghislaine, is that it? Maxwell, is in prison now. Clearly something has gone down. Yeah. For President Trump to just try and put it in the Russia hoax category, it doesn't quite feel right, that all these high profile men through the years, they have them on the flight log, even if they don't know what they did, they had all these, influential, wealthy, powerful men flying onto this island. And how in the world did Epstein even get an island? Well, what was his business? Where did he get his money from? I read he didn't even have a degree. He was in finance. Where did he get all these planes and money to, have these resorts and islands and that kind of thing? It's all kind of a mystery. So it does smell to me of not a hoax, but a cover up. The Speaker of the House, Johnson, today just ended the congressional session a day early because he wanted to avoid having to vote on releasing the Epstein files. So I think, to be honest with you, as they're getting into it, my gut instinct tells me is they don't realize how messy this is, and that, maybe high profile, maybe President Trump's donors, maybe heads of countries would all be implicated, and they're trying to figure out what to do. Maybe countries that we're even allies with, have had, people from representing their governments, participate in some of the activities there. So I think they're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, there's more to this than we realize. Maybe we know why Biden just swept it under the rug, And so I definitely am feeling like, wow. But, sometimes when people call something a hoax, it is a hoax. And sometimes when you call it a hoax because you're just trying to hope it'll die down and go away, that doesn't feel good either. We need to know what is a hoax and what is not a hoax, Deb.
Yeah, we need to know the truth. And boy, you have changed my mind this morning. For our listeners, we pick the topics, but we don't always know what the other one's going to say. And Wow, Julene, I really appreciate you digging some of that stuff out. I didn't know because I get how you feel. And I think Epstein was a crook and a disgusting man.
Yeah.
And if he did kill himself, it was because he didn't want the world to know how disgusting, sickening, and depraved he really was. And so I agree wholeheartedly with you that we need to know who participated in this horrible lifestyle. But I didn't quite get how really bad we need to know until what you just said. To think about the money and where did he get it, and to think about my problem is in working in an attorney's office. I understand Pam Bondi and maybe her defense, because I believe that she could have been told or even just simply thought that incriminating evidence would be in the files on her desk. So she said something, and maybe the group sending her the files to her said, yes, it's all there. Yet as an attorney, when you read every page looking for evidence, those files may not include what the court would need to pass judgment. Attorneys that I have worked for many times, they would look through papers and then they would say, how will this prove that my client is not guilty or guilty, whichever they were representing? And if the papers aren't enough to get a conviction, if they're a prosecutor, then they're useless. You can't use them. And I've worked in an attorney offices and watched that happen. You think you have what you need, but the more you study and read, you realize it's too hidden, or you can't push it up without breaking some other law. So I think the Epstein problem is going to keep rolling us in the waves of lies for a while, but you certainly stopped some of those waves today. I want to know answers to some of the questions you brought up. Mm-hmm. I was also appalled by the way all of the Biden staff took the fifth when they came in to talk about Biden's condition. And that's one thing that you have to say, well, yes, it's in the Bill of Rights and they have a reason for it and it's okay. And it seems, they should be able to do that. But to me, that kind of seems shady, especially in this situation. Someone or all of them are not telling the truth. And we need to get to the truth on all these issues. But my goodness, it's like you're turning the world upside down and shaking it and say, where's the truth?
Yeah, definitely. It would seem so. There's hearings going on right now up on the Hill. This fitness probe of Biden is underway because apparently they're finding or, wondering if there was a cover-up about his mental decline, particularly towards the end of his presidency, when in the last few weeks, all those executive orders and actions and pardons and the question is, were these really unauthorized? Did he even know what was going on? And then, the usage of this auto pen. And so clearly, I think his former cabinet members are trying to shield themselves, right, from any criminal liability and any kind of conspiracy, when clearly it was obvious to a lot of Americans, maybe for quite some time, that he was failing. But yet, his staff continued clear up to the end to, prop him up and say he's sharp as ever. He just had a long flight. He's a little tired. But now they're all pleading the fifth. And so it appears like they might uncover a scandal there as well.
Oh my goodness. It's just this tsunami. And that's what lies do to us, right? Yeah. In the first few minutes here of our program, we have three very important lies, maybe 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, whatever. People were hurt. People lost jobs and money. My son Jamie was living in New York and going to NYU when Rudy Giuliani was there, and said he was such an honorable man, heard him talk several times, liked what he was doing to clean up New York. But he has totally lost his reputation and everything he owned, all because someone chose to lie and create a scandal about Donald Trump. Not only did Giuliani lose his reputation, he lost his ability to work, and that caused a lifelong punishment of losing his dreams of a comfortable retirement. Lies hurt you. Lies matter. Lies destroy everyone. And me, I just feel betrayed. I mean, I'm not part of that. I'm not in that circle where it would affect me. But when someone lies to you, even if you don't know them personally, it leaves you feeling violated and betrayed. Is that how you feel, Julene?
Oh, yeah, it can really shake you up, makes you lose faith in the establishment, the government, our leaders. It causes you to be more cynical and distrusting. I mean, it's not a way that I want to live, right?
No, not me either. Because about the time you think you've got your life straightened out and you're going down a certain path, then some lie comes around and hits you and you're sitting on your behind again.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, let's change this a little bit. I think the first thing we have to do is make an assessment of our own lives. How does this lie actually change my life? Maybe I can go on and do what needs to be done for the next 2 years because I'm not going to jail. I'm not without funds. I'm not prevented from making a living. When we assess our own lives, we often have to admit, my life hasn't changed. I may feel sick or sad or betrayed, but personally, I haven't lost anything. Now, be careful about stressing out over the big outcomes when you can't do anything about them. Yes, maybe this will hurt some of our freedoms, and yet, with prayer and hard work, maybe it won't. So walk out on your front porch, take a deep breath and say, I'm not in trouble. I'm not going to jail. They might, but for right now, I'm okay. And I can talk about it. And if it needs to be changed, what do? Then get busy and make a plan and change your part of the world. In fact, that's how change really comes about. Somebody like me starts talking to my neighbors, and then the neighbors talk out, and it's like throwing a pebble in the water. The waves continue to go out, and maybe we can get to a solution on this. We are trying to help, Julene and I are trying to help you see the lies. So together we can change things with our vote, how we talk to our neighbors, possibly how history is viewed. What do you think, Julene?
Yeah, I think you're a wise woman. I mean, I know, Deb, you've had people that have reminded you, and my husband always tells me this, Julene, there's a lot of things we have no control over, so don't stress out about things that you can't control. Focus on the things that you can control, right? And
Right.
so I think you build a foundation of things you can control, right? You're anchoring, and I get my anchoring from God, prayer, spending time, in the Bible, being like biblically strong, and then understanding the government. I've taken classes throughout my life that have led me to little organizations that I've become involved with, Moms for America, and then it then caused my husband to run for office, and it caused us to begin. He won. Then it caused us to begin to, meet members of Congress and state legislature and began to exact our opinion and influence good things happen in a relationship. So you have to be up and about doing something, right? So you go to classes, you take some classes that, Debbie and I teach, go to town hall meetings, go to meet the candidates. Strong local government is the keystone to human freedom. So do something in your neighborhood at a local level. A couple members of Congress and former members of the state legislature came to our child's wedding. And it's all because I started taking a little class on government, which then led me to, teaching these ideas in my home, which then led my husband to run for office. And so you just don't know how these little hinge points in your life will now lead me to, I go visit the White House maybe once or twice a month now. I live in Washington, D.C., and the president loves to have representatives from Moms for America there. So, and it all started with me taking a little class on how to heal America. And so you just start with things that you can control. Typically yourself, your relationship with God, your relationship with community members. Good things happen in a relationship. So start to form more relationships.
I love that. And all of our listeners, you roll this tape back or this this video back and you get you a piece of paper and you write down everything that Julene just said, because that's exactly what you need to do. I like that. And I would add to it, then make a list of things that absolutely will destroy our personal freedoms. And if those, and the reason you make that list, if those things aren't even close to happening, then calm down, go back and do what Julene said, and we'll make everything better. For example, and I'm going to end with this one, having another New York Muslim communist Democrat in our government is one step closer to taking down our country. So I'd like to encourage everyone in New York that Mamdani is touting complete socialism and communist behavior. He wants to defund the police, jails aren't necessary, government-run grocery stores, and the list goes on and on. Yes, this man is a full-blown crisis with a smile. He's a snake with a lipstick. So don't mistake the hype for intelligence. He's cruel and wants to destroy New York. I hope New Yorkers will send him packing. Right, Julene?
Oh, well, the New Yorkers are going to have to rise up and get involved in this election. It's interesting. He might split the vote because Adams, who's now the mayor, is going to run, I think, as independent, and then Cuomo is going to run also. And so I think the people that might be against Mamdani might vote for either of those two better candidates, let's say, and by default, Mamdani might win. So, I think New Yorkers have got to somehow figure this thing out, because this is going to be a critical election, mayoral election. And I think, is that coming up in the fall, Deb? Is that a few months away?
I think so.
So, I hope that they're awake and alert as to, the downfall of having a, what'd you call him? A communist, democratic communist, Muslim democratic communist in office. Doesn't sound good to me, Deb. I don't think I'll be going to New York City too much. It's only a couple hours away from me. We go up often, but I don't think I can go visit that place.
I wouldn't either. And I called him a snake with lipstick because he smiles all the time. He won't answer a question. He just walks by people.
Yeah.
And that tells you right there he's hiding something.
Yeah.
So let's get on to our tip. Here's my tip for the day. While we can talk about another hour about all these tsunamis of lies, your fears won't stop and the knot in your stomach won't go away until you face the problem. Take a deep breath and do what my son Ken always tells me, eat the live frog. And what that means is take it on. Manage it and dig for every bit of information you can. It's important that you name and recognize the lie that is most important to you. Do your research. Don't let them fool you by being stupid about what they're peddling. They're going to try to distract you and get you to go in a different way. Don't do that. Problems and conspiracies count on your desire to give in, let it go, believe the lie, and just have peace. Don't let the lies take over your life. Manage them. Stay calm and determined that you will never give in. You will never believe the lies. Then lay out a plan, and most of all, my tip to you is to believe in your ability to understand the situation. Draw a mind map if you need to. Make a list of the issues like Julene was telling you to do. Toss it around in your head until you truly understand the lie and how to kill it. And don't forget to take a break once in a while so you can stay sane. Ask God for wisdom and then use the wisdom He gives you. Julene?
Your tips are so good. They're like Sunday school lessons, Deb. That is so beautiful. I mean, you're right. We came to Earth to learn the lesson, right? And all of our lessons are going to look a little bit differently. I mean, we're all travelers down here on Earth, away, I always tell my kids, from our heavenly home. And the purpose of this world is not necessarily to have and hold and to get rich and be powerful. But I tell the kids it's to give and to serve. And I really think there can be no other meaning, right? And as right. We give and we're learning and we're serving, it's what keeps us grounded, right? We talked about right. like probably a dozen times today. We pray, we're in the word, we give service. And as you serve other people and you learn, you begin to form relationships that I just talked about. And in relationship, good things happen. And that, I think, in those kind of healthy relationships, it gives you hope for things that you can't even control, right? So
Right.
we're all travelers. It's our game is not to, get and to hold on to what we have, but it's to give and to learn and to serve and to form relationships and to build and to bless. And it helps you to deal with some of the foolishness, some of the hanky panky, some of those lies out there that inevitably are going to be swirling, right? And and it doesn't knock us off. We can still maintain balance even in the midst of the storms.
I agree. That is a great idea, Julene. Thank you so much. Subscribe to this podcast and join us again. You can ask a question or request that we dig into a specific topic by writing Debbie@DebbieJansen.com. And thanks again to our wonderful producer, Ken Jansen. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Julene Jackson, and we hope that you will keep sticking to the truth. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.